Welcome students to my class of BA Part 1 English Literature, Paper 1, Section A. Today we'll be studying another romantic poet, the trio of Shelley, Keats and Byron, well-known romantic poets, the younger romantic poets. Byron, born in 1788 and died in 1824, was also a very important romantic poet, and we will study how he reflects upon nature and his impressions about human life in one of his very popular poems. Byron is also simply known as Lord Byron, and he was a British poet and politician as well, and as I just mentioned, was one of the leading figures of the Romantic movement. He remains widely read and influential, and one of his most popular autobiographical poem, Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, published during 1812 and 18, from which we will be studying today's poem in the 19th century, and he is now more generally well known for his work Don Juan, published during 1819 to 1824, which is satiric realism. Some of his major works are Hours of Idleness, Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, Prometheus, Heaven and Earth, and Don Juan. These are among a few of his many published works. In today's class, we will be studying a beautiful poem by Byron titled There is a Pleasure in the Pathless Woods. So the background to this we need to understand is that the total number of lines of the Pleasure in the Pathless Woods are 178 verse, and this poem is actually a part of a much larger poem, which is Childe Harold's Pilgrimage. And in this poem, the poet talks about his strong desire for solitude and peace, and many of the stanzas in this story are based on elements of Byron's life up until the point leading some to describe the poem as being semi-autobiographical. So basically it's from a bigger poem called Childe Harold Pilgrimage, and this belongs, as we had studied in earlier poem about canto. So this poem, The Pathless Woods, is canto 4 of Childe Harold's Pilgrimage. Lord Byron himself apparently was unsure about publishing the first two cantos of this Childe Harold after their completion, because he was concerned about expressing himself so truly in a public domain through this poem. During the era surrounding the writing and publishing of this poem, Byron spent much of his time traveling, and it is likely that he discovered his own inner need for solitude that eventually resulted in the creation of this verse. One of the things Byron is well known for is that he embarked on a self-imposed exile from his homeland and spent much time east of Britain. So the time spent with his own self has probably inspired the poet to write about this connection between mankind and nature in this poem. So let us first read this poem aloud. There is pleasure in the pathless woods. So you can see the element of alliteration by the repetition of the sound pleasure, pathless. So woods, you all would know, is referring to the deep forests. So let us read this poem and enjoy it. There is a pleasure in the pathless woods. There is a rapture on the lonely shore. There is society where none intrudes by the deep sea, and music in its roar. I love not man the less, but nature more. From these are interviews in which I steal from all I may be, or have been before, to mingle with the universe and feel what I can never express, yet cannot all conceal. Roll on, thou deep and dark blue ocean. Roll, 10,000 fleets sweep over thee in vain. Man marks the earth with ruin. His control stops with the shore upon the watery plain. The wrecks are all thy deed. The wrecks refers to the various kinds of destructions. Nor doth remain a shadow of man's ravage, save his own, when for a moment, like a drop of rain, he sinks into thy depths with bubbling groan, without a grave, unknelled, uncoffined, and unknown. His steps are not upon thy paths, thy fields are not a spoil for him. Thou dost arise and shake him from thee. The wild strength he wields for earth's destruction, thou dost all despise, spurning him from thy bosom to the skies, and sendest him shivering in thy playful spray, and howling to his gods, where happily lies his petty hope in some near port or bay, and dashest him again to the earth. There let him lay. So this is the whole poem, and let us study in detail uh, the poem Pleasure in the Pathless Woods, which, as I have mentioned, is Canto 4 of the bigger poem Childe Harold's Pilgrimage. So the poet, as mentioned in the historical background, had gone on his travel where he was all alone, and being near nature, he reflects upon the kind of happiness and satisfaction and pleasure he derives uh, when he moves on pathless wood. So, pathless here refers to the actually literally to the uh, expedition he probably takes in the rich forests where he goes, paths which have never before been tread by other human beings. So it may also symbolically refer to taking a path in your life which has not been before tread by other human beings, something new and something which your heart desires. So when you follow your own passion, maybe it has a lot of risk, but it gives you pleasure because it is something which your heart pines for or desires deeply. So the poet may also be referring to the kind of path he has taken in his life, which may be novel or new or unconventional, but which gives to him a deep satisfaction and pleasure. There is a rapture on the lonely shore. So, again, the word rapture refers to a deep kind of a joy the persona finds on a seashore which is silent, uh, as no human being is there. There is society where none intrudes. So, what is the word society here referring to? Because there are clubbing of opposite ideas here. Society refers to people, but then the poet dramatically writes where none intrudes. So, how can there be two paradoxical things? But what the poet intends to say is that solitude is something where one is with oneself and does not feel alone. So you are not alone or lonely, but you are in company of yourself. So he finds this company when nobody is there. By the deep sea and music in his its roar. So if you have ever experienced being near a seashore and you listen to the waves crashing and thrashing and the music that is raised because of it. I love not man the less, but nature more. So, like other romantic poets, the love of nature here is clearly being spilled forth in the words, and the poet declares clearly that it's not that he's against mankind or human beings, but he finds more solace and peace and company among the various elements of nature. Because from these are interviews in which I steal from all I may be or have been before to mingle with the universe. So, actually, nature, as I had referred in my earlier lectures, was taken up as having different meanings for different romantic poets. Like Wordsworth spiritualizes nature, and Shelley intellectualizes it. And here Byron seems to be again giving nature a kind of a meaning beyond the earthly life, because when you are near a sea or in the open sky, you can deeply connect to the power which nature has and the expansiveness of the universe. So, when you connect yourself to something huge, you also become uplifted from your ordinary human life. So, that kind of an upliftment which a person gets has great significance. To mingle with the universe and feel what I can never express, yet cannot all conceal. So, that kind of feeling which a person gets in connecting with something superior, something more expansive, and that gives your life a greater meaning. So, here the poet is referring to this connection with nature in this sense. And the poet continues in the lines further, describing nature in a different form. Roll on, thou deep and dark blue ocean, roll. So, if you have observed being near a seashore or an ocean, you will see that how the deep sea and the ocean, they have huge waves rolling over its surface, something very huge. And over this sea or the ocean, 10,000 fleets sweep over thee in vain. So, what is it referring to? What are these fleets? Are the boats or the ships which are moving on the surface of the sea. So, man marks the earth with ruin. So, here it refers to, again, like the other romantic poets, the havoc human beings create with their experiments and with their greed by ruining nature. So, man marks the earth with ruin. His control stops with the shore upon the watery plain. So, human beings, when compared to the power of the ocean or the sea, which is a huge expansive area of water, there man cannot show his power. So, in these lines, he refers to this power of nature. The wrecks are all thy deed, nor doth remain a shadow of man's ravage save his own. When for a moment, like a drop of rain, he sinks into thy depths with bubbling groan. So we can all imagine if a man, what energy or power a man has in front of the huge power of the waves of the ocean. It's just like a drop of rain falling into the big ocean, being drowned. So human being is just like that drop of water, which if falls in that huge ocean would quickly drown, bubbling groan, and the sound of being choked by water would be is described without a grave, unknelled, uncoffined, and unknown. So man's significance or uh, value before this expansive element of nature, that is water or ocean, is nothing, because um the the person would just simply drown, and there would be no grave. He would not unknelled. So knell word, as you had heard earlier, refers to the death bell. So there is no rituals that would follow with the death of a person who is drowned, because it cannot be uh, uncoffined. So the negative prefix un refers to the absence of all those rituals that take place of a person who dies. So the repetitive negative prefix unknelled, uncoffined, unknown mentions or signifies the uh, man's helplessness before the power of nature. His steps are not upon thy paths, thy fields are not a spoil for him. Thou dost arise and shake him from thee. So, for ocean, uh, man does not have, cannot do anything to ravage the ocean. In fact, the ocean has no value for human beings when it comes to showing its power. And this, with this great strength, the ocean would throw away anything that comes over it. The wild strength he wields for earth's destruction, thou dost all despise, spurning him from thy bosom to the skies. So man cannot do any destruction over your surface, as he has done on the earth by his use of the resources or the raw material, because here his power is insignificant. And sendest him shivering in thy playful spray, and howling to his gods, where happily lies his petty hope in some near port or bay, and dashest him again to earth, there let him lay. So, here it refers to the strong waves which appear in the ocean, before which human beings are like just ants, and in the hope that it would, the waves would bring him to some shore. The human beings, when they come across this power of ocean, they cry to God for being saved, but they find themselves being thrown on the earth with that huge power. So we find that Byron, in this poem, uh, in the initial stanzas, refers to the beautiful solitude that comes from being near nature. But at the same time, in the next stanza, he talks about how the human beings have caused so much destruction on earth. But when coming to ocean, they become very insignificant, and nothing can harm this huge power of water. So, this is a beautiful poem being a part of the bigger poem Childe Harold's Pilgrimage. So, with this, we come to end of lesson.